Okay, guys, just another end of year review. This time on the Voge 300 Rally. This bike of mine's done 2,400 miles or thereabouts. I've had it just over a year. I've been very impressed, and I think most of the people who've ridden it have, to be honest. What is it? It's a single-cylinder trail bike, 27, 28 horsepower, weighs about 160, 165 wet, which is identical to a CRF. And I think that's the obvious comparison that people have been trying to make. Is it better than a CRF? Should they buy one over a CRF? You know, I've seen a lot of people ride the two bikes back to back and comment, and there'll always be some that flop towards the Honda because they like the pedigree of it, the brand, and what it represents. And also, in some cases, they prefer the way it rides. And then there's obviously other people who prefer the Voge because it does the same thing, or they argue it does the same thing for less money. And I'm probably in the latter camp. For me, why the Voge ticks so many boxes is because it remains incredible value. I mean, in fact, that they're doing run out of the Euro 5 models at £3,500. So for £3,500, you can get a brand new, very capable trail bike that will also travel as well. And when you compare that to the Honda, which is £6,700, it's a bit of a no-brainer as a brand new purchase. As soon as you add in second-hand options, then obviously it equals out, and there will be some who say, well, I'd rather buy a 3-4-year-old Honda for £3,500 than a brand new Chinese bike. And I get that argument. I think you could go around in circles, and ultimately it'll be down to you and what values you prefer in a bike, whether it's heritage and pedigree or just value and capability. You know, for me, why I prefer the Voge to the Honda is I just find it more exciting. For the engine is a bit rougher, a bit more coarse, but it seems to have a bit more pep, a bit more grunt to it, and just a little bit more excitement and willingness to it. I don't think it's faster, it just does it. It delivers its power in a slightly more charismatic way. And then the suspension, which to me sits really nice and sort of tall in the stroke. It doesn't have the sag of the Honda, and it means that you can really lean on the bike and ride the bike a little bit more aggressively than you can with the Honda. And I don't think there's any incentive to improve the suspension as there is on the Honda. I think the downsides with the Voge, I think there is niggles. I don't think there's any consistent niggles, in fairness. I don't think there's any real major weak points. The test bike that I had in 2023 just had the wheel bearings, and wheel bearings seem to be a semi-common issue. There's been a few people with side stands that have snapped, and then there's other people who've had sort of random electrical gremlins. So I don't think you could argue it's as well put together or as 100% reliable as the Honda, and I think that is where people would favour the Honda. That it's guaranteed reliability, whereas the Voge, it has got a few cycle part niggles, bearings, etc. But this bike at £2,400, 2,400 miles hasn't needed anything. The chains seem really good. The brake pads seem to be lasting, and those Timson tyres, I still think are probably one of the best adventure tyres on the market for the fact that they're easy to get on and off. They last a long time and they're grippy on the road and also off-road to a certain degree. So I think the beauty of the Voge is that you buy it straight out of the crate, it's ready to go. You might want to put some knobbly tyres on, but you already get the crash bars, you get the handguards, you get the rear rack, and you get the suspension that works, again, straight out of the crate. So it is a bit of a no-brainer on that part. Servicing's every 3,000 miles, although I believe they're just upping that to 4,500 miles, which sort of suggests how arbitrary the service intervals on most bikes. I think they just pluck the figures out of the air and base it more on commercial decisions, rather than on engineering or mechanical reasoning. The fact they can extend it from 3,000 to 4.5. Well, what have they done to make it more able to do that? Well, absolutely nothing. So I've had quite a few Voges on tours with me this year. I had 3 go to Iceland, and I had 4 come down to Stella Alpina with me in Italy. And so that's 7 bikes, some big miles, some difficult situations, and to be honest, none of them faltered. The only issue was with Bob's, whose ignition key got stuck in the barrel, and they had to take the back of the ignition off and just use a screwdriver to start it. So that was the only niggle on 7 bikes over about 20,000 miles combined. But I think for this type of travelling, where you're just loading a bike up and taking it down on the A roads through Europe and down to the Alps, or you're going up through Iceland, or you want to do the TET or the ACT, I think that's where it really comes into its own. It will work well on the road. It has got its limits with its stock gearing. 60, 65 is where it starts to get a bit busy and a bit buzzy, so you won't want to be sat much more than that unless you geared it up a little bit, which obviously you could do from I think it's a 14 stock front to a 16, or you could come down on the rear to a 45 or a 42. I think people are doing, so you can gear it for more road work. Personally, having ridden the demo bike that I had in 2023 down through Spain, I did Lanzento John O'Groats, and I did Italian Alps on it. I don't mind the stock gearing. It just means that you've got to ride a little bit off the pace on the open road, but then when you get in the mountains and in the Alps and you're doing the hairpins and the twisties, you've got lots of grunt or lots of torque down low to haul out the corners and chase through the mountains. So I actually quite like the stock gearing when you're in more confined environments, and then off road it works really well. So it depends what you're going to do with the bike, but I think the 7 guys who use their bikes this year, and I think that's probably the true review, the end of year review really, rather than my bike. I think it's their bikes. I think they're the ultimate test of what this bike is capable of, and at the price. The fact that we can buy a £3.5 bike and take it to Iceland or take it to Italy and have faith in it getting us there and getting us back, and also being enjoyable to ride and capable. I think that's a big test of it. Getting parts isn't too bad. MotoGP do carry a catalogue, although I think there are some omissions in that. So, I don't think it's 100% easy access to parts. Although my experience this year is that no manufacturer seems to have a good supply of parts. Parts are cheap, I would say that. I did break the starter button off my bike, and the instrument cluster, the hand cluster, was about £30, and the equivalent Honda one was £95. So if you do need parts, they are going to be cheaper to acquire, which is one good thing. The bike is a little bit tall for some people. I think at 900 and odd. I think it's 910mm seat height with a little bit of sag. So once you're on it, it's not too bad, but it doesn't sag so much as a CRF. So I think anybody under 5'9" or so is going to maybe struggle on the Voge. It depends how confident a rider you are. There are lowering kits. I mean, Uncle Wang in China has a lot of offerings, and there's loads of stuff out there because the bike is quite a mainstream product in the fact that it's a launching. So launching of the Chinese manufacturer. Voge is their premium badge, but effectively I think it's a launching GY300. They also do other bikes of this derivative, and there's also the Raihu 307 Rally coming through in 2025, which looks promising. It looks to be identical. It looks to be a Voge 300 Rally, but with more of a rally cockpit, a bigger tank, plusher plastics. It looks a better finished bike. And then the big change for it is the adjustable suspension. So it looks almost like an R version of the Voge 300 Rally. That could be tempting. And if the price comes in below 5, I think that could be an interesting proposition for people who want a slightly more premium upmarket Voge Rally. But I think my bike's been a success. I love jumping on it and just riding it. It's such an easy get on and ride bike. I think that's where its real virtues are. It takes no effort. It's almost, you just get on it, you feel at home, and you ride it pretty aggressively, and it will steer really nicely, and it'll push through corners really well, and it gives enough excitement on the trails. There are some people who say it's a bit too heavy, and I think those people are right to a point when they say these 160 kilo bikes are too heavy. I dropped it the other day on the trails, and it is a heavy bike if you dropped it many times, and you can see there where the argument against the CRS and the Voge is that they are too heavy on the trails, and I can see that. And if you're a novice and you're going to fall off a lot, you might want to get something smaller. The issue is, where do we go for something smaller and lighter for a trail bike? I think that's the issue. I personally don't want an enduro bike. It's not for me. I don't want that sort of high performance type of machine, and I don't think it's going to be too great on the road. What does that leave us with? Well, not a lot really. A second-hand Cero maybe. And that's it, isn't it? We really do want, I guess, a 690 KTM, but again, a little bit too peaky. We do just want a 140 kilo, 25 horsepower machine. In fairness, the only one coming to market that I can think of is the Hero X-Pulse 200 that's hopefully coming out next year, which looks to be about 145. low seat height and about 22, 23 brake horsepower. So that could be interesting. So yeah, the Voge, does it make a good novice trail bike? Well, I guess like all bikes of this nature, it's good until to the point where you need to keep lifting it up, and then it's going to be too heavy for you, and that's where trail riding in the UK is a tricky one. But for open flowing stuff in Europe, I can really see why the Voge is ticked a lot of boxes. So yeah, I think conclusion, it's been a great addition to the small capacity adventure trail market, because it's allowed people to go out and buy a brand new bike and hit the trail straight away without that sort of worry that you're going to devalue it too much. Like even now with the CRF that I've got, the 300 Rally, which is probably getting on for 4 years old, and I'm still a bit precious of it. I'd still be upset if I dropped it or somebody else dropped it or it devalued it too much. A lot of plastic on it, a lot of expense if it breaks or I break it. Whereas the Voge, you just throw it into edges and you pick it up and you kind of don't care. Rich Fellows is a chap who came on Italy with his, and he leaves it outside. He doesn't give any concern to how it looks and how it's weathering, and that's the beauty of it. In his mind, that he spent a little bit of money on it. It doesn't owe him anything, and he can use it and abuse it in the way that a trail bike should be used, I think. So, I think with the Honda, you're buying a bike to last, to own for a long time, to cherish, to keep. I think the Voge, you're just buying a naughty mistress to use and abuse and sort of discard after you've finished with it. And, I don't think there's a right and a wrong there. It's just whichever camp you want to fall into. But I think performance-wise, they're both very equal. And performance-wise, these bikes aren't going to tick every box. There will always be those people who want less weight, more power. And I get that, but, you can't have that for $3,500. How does it compare to a CCM GP450? I get asked quite a lot. Totally different beasts, really. But actually not that dissimilar in a way. I think the CCM has obviously got plusher suspension because its value is 3 times that of the Voge. But the Voge holds its own and would arguably be more reliable. So I think on that front, a mass-produced Chinese bike or a bespoke, custom-built British adventure travel bike, well, I'd take the Chinese one, unfortunately, and that unfortunately reflects or shines a light on the state of the British industry, doesn't it? Or the inability for Western markets or manufacturers to compete with China. There is an argument that the Chinese have simply copied the Japanese, and in some ways they have. This engine's a KLX 300, a derivative of it. Whether it was built by Longchin on license or whether they pinched it, I don't know, or whether Kawasaki had Longchin build their engines for the KLX over the years. I don't know on that front either. The Chinese have clearly not innovated in this bike, but what they have done is thrown together all the ingredients that we wanted, and the consequence and the outcome is a great, usable, cheap machine. And that's actually what I wanted, and that seems to be what a lot of other people wanted. So, yeah, thumbs up for the Voge. It could be better. It could have better paint. It could have better bearings. But it's $3,500-4,000. Maybe the Euro 5 Plus model that comes out next year, the update will be a little bit more money. Who knows? It also only runs on Euro 5, or it says to, or it's only rated to Euro 5 on the sticker on the tank. But I've had no issue running it on E10. Long term, does it do any damage? I don't suspect so, to be honest. I don't suspect so. But officially, it's got to be Euro 5 fuel. And that's it. So yeah, happy days. I'll keep this one on fleet and let other people loose on it for a bit. All right, take it easy. Cheers.